The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? Are you autistic and have super brittle bones? No? Good. You're doing better than Austin in The Unbreakable Boy. But as Amber and Scott discuss, there is no need to feel sorry for him at all. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
I'm Scottman, and I'm going to give you facts. Lots and lots of facts.
Yeah, this movie did hit close to home in a lot of ways. This episode, we are talking about The Unbreakable Boy, which could also be called the Scott story. You've never met a kid like Austin. He's not just 1 in a million, he's 1 in 4 billion. The odds of being born with both a rare brittle bone disease and autism. But what makes Austin truly unique is his joyous, funny, life-affirming worldview that transforms and unites everyone around him, especially his dad, Scott, who comes to see Austin not only as a symbol of something, who comes to see Austin not as the symbol of something broken, but the triumph of an indestructible spirit. The Unbreakable Boy.
Yeah, that was a little sappy on the intro, but there were a couple of parts I'm like, wow, this movie is just maybe too wholesome. I mean, I liked that. I liked it, and I was like, oh, this is just wholesome.
Yeah, it definitely was a very family-friendly movie with lots of messages weaved in as we see these two people meet. And on the third date, she says, I'm pregnant. And kudos to Scott. He actually steps up, doesn't say, is it mine? And actually gets together with our gal. And they have a baby. And right before the baby's born, but while they're moving in together, she says, oh, FYI, I have this bone disease where my bones are kind of like chalk and I can't do anything. And our son's probably going to have it. So after they have their baby, he starts breaking things. He actually broke his ribs
while being born.
While being born, yeah, where they actually used the forceps to get him out. Like several of his ribs cracked, and they didn't even know until a couple years later.
Yeah, I've had like badly bruised type ribs and stuff, but not broken. And that was miserable. I cannot imagine coming into this world with broken ribs.
Yeah, he cried a lot, and after the fact, then they realized, oh, gee, maybe that's why he was crying a lot.
Yeah, because freaking ribs were broken, yeah.
Yeah, so after some time goes by and they have lots of breaks, Austin starts being a handful. And they're very overwhelmed, and they take him in for some tests, and it turns out he is also autistic. So on top of having dozens of breaks already in his body from just being a kid and doing things kids do, now we're faced with Austin being autistic and the challenges that creates more for his mom and his dad, and not really for him at all. He just seems very happy-go-lucky to just embrace life in its fullest form and doesn't really seem to miss a beat.
Yeah, he's like, I'm Austin. I break things. That's who I am. I break things.
Yeah. So I mean, this is, I think I suspect you probably like this because there was, you're always big on mental health advocacy, and I mean, what is your take on this film?
I mean, yes, I very much liked it. I will say that,
and for you to like a wholesome movie, that's really saying something.
I do understand why Dad started drinking as much as he did.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I condone it, but
no, it was a lot.
Yeah, he apparently drank a lot, and man, let me tell you, and
started drinking. He wasn't really like that before.
Yeah, I wasn't real happy with the fact that he was named Scott when in the opening scene he's shit-faced and putting his 2 kids in the car shit-faced. I'm like, oh, listen, if you want to drive drunk, that's one thing. If you drive drunk with your 2 kids in the backseat, that is an entirely different ballgame.
Yeah, so we started the film where our story was almost 75% through, and then we went to the backstory of, how they meet and how he got into that situation. And up till then, he absolutely had been drinking. He wasn't like that, but I think he just got really wore down from the tolls of life and working and growing medical bills and stress, and which is one thing, but when you get into a car and you load up your 2 young kids, that's next level, and that's where you've got to draw a line, which his wife did, and saying, "Yeah, you've got to leave now."
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
when he went into Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, that's the line. That's the no. We're done until you are better. Not. I say I'm going to get better. Not I'm getting better.
Yeah.
Like you need to be better at that point.
Because you're not only jeopardizing your kids, you're that kind of lack of judgment where you could actually kill your children is, that's not okay. So what did you think of our main character, Austin? And obviously, we're looking at what would you do? What would you do if you were someone like Austin or someone in Austin's world?
The beautiful thing about Austin's world is it's funny because obviously, me, I drew some comparisons to Billy, a dog that we had, where we always said, today's the best day ever.
Yeah.
And for Billy, every day was the best day ever. And for Austin, every day was the best day ever. Like, yeah, he was brittle. He was autistic. He didn't give two shits about any of that.
Yeah.
He just this is who I am. I talk a lot.
He talked so much.
He did talk a lot. Yeah, I talk a lot. I make friends. Even if they're not my friends, if I think they're my friends, they're my friends. And he just put himself out there. Like, he just didn't care. It's not that he didn't care what other people thought about him.
He didn't know or think to do anything other than just be himself.
Yeah. I mean,
he had no filter to try and be anything other than himself.
And that's good. I mean, I think that's being that individual. And again, it's not even that he was trying to be an individual or anything. He wasn't trying in any way, shape, or form to be different. He just was.
He followed whatever his instinct told him to do, whatever he wanted to say or do or act like or whatever. He was just very much, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And, I want to, I guess, be a little careful around this topic because autism, obviously there's a lot that goes into raising an autistic child.
Yeah, and it should be noted he was definitely on the high functioning side. He would have been like more what Asperger's is or was. Like, that's where he was on the spectrum. So yes, he was autistic, but he was high functioning.
Yeah. Yeah. And we see his parents, especially his dad, needing a break and it being too much. And this was so before Austin was diagnosed with autism, his dad was really overwhelmed with Austin being Austin. Austin talked to all the time. Austin would follow him in talking. He basically just didn't have a turn off switch. He was always going. And I suspect if I was in that situation, it would be really easy to just need a break.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, like, listen, I am self-aware in that I know that there are a few of Austin's qualities that exist in me.
Yes.
Maybe not quite as extreme. And I know I'm exhausting. So, and Austin taking it even further and him just really just not having an off switch.
Yeah.
That's going to be exhausting for the people who are around him. I mean, like, you love him. He's great. But it's like I once got told by a former partner who meant it definitely not nearly as nicely as I would mean it here. Is like, I need you to be about 30% less you right now. It's just like you're up here. I need you to bring it down a bit.
And when it's your kid, I mean, obviously that is a whole different relationship than a spouse or someone you're dating. It's your kid, and you would do anything for your kid. And there was one scene where the mom Teresa found the dad Scott in the closet sleeping, and turns out they had been playing hide and seek, Austin and the dad, like 3 hours earlier, and Scott just fell asleep in the closet, and it was probably the only break he had had in a very long time.
He's like, I am quite fine not being found.
Yeah, and then she crawled in the closet, and they both kind of hid in there for a moment. But it's it's a lot, and I think, you know, what would I do if I was in any of the characters' shoes? I have to say, I was really impressed with Austin's brother.
Yeah, no, that was a interesting character because
He was younger.
Yeah, while he was the younger brother, he actually really took on the older brother role of
Advocating for him, looking out for him, making sure.
Yeah, I won't say
okay.
playing caretaker, but like watchdog.
Yeah, like
So-
being that protective older brother, even though he was
He was younger, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I have to be honest here, and I say I'm a little challenged with the what would you do? Because I think it's really hard to put yourself in any of these characters' shoes. You know, what would you do if you were the mom? Well, if you're your mom and that's your kid, you know, you're just going to slog through it all and do your absolute best because you love your kid. If you're the dad and you have that break away to be able to go to a job, you know, there was a moment where the mom, Teresa, was almost like, you know, you get to go and travel and I have to stay here. And he was like, it's a job. But in a situation like that, even a job is a little bit of a vacation because you're not there.
It was entirely an escape.
Yeah. So, you know, what would I do if I was the younger brother? It's like, okay, yeah, I would absolutely have my brother's back in making sure that people were kind and compassionate and that he was never in danger or physical or mental, any sort of difficult situation. If I was the dad. So here's the thing is I actually had a lot of compassion for the dad. And aside from the moment, which was, of course, the absolute no tolerance moment of him getting in the car and putting the kids in the car after he drank too much at a New Year's Eve party. Aside from that, I actually really had a lot of empathy for the dad who was struggling and, you know, would have a glass of wine or would stop at a bar for a drink because I was watching a movie. And Austin exhausted me.
Yes.
So I don't want to speak out of turn because this isn't a topic that I have firsthand knowledge, and I certainly don't want to offend anybody. But I absolutely had a great deal of empathy for the dad because, you know, he wasn't naturally a huggy, outgoing, demonstrous kind of a personality, and for him to be put in a situation where he has a kid who's just all over the place all the time and so energetic and loving life and just, okay, you know, let's do it all and do all the stuff and have the best day. And I can understand how that would be taxing on someone, but especially someone where that's not their personality trait, where they're a little bit more reserved.
Yeah, it was definitely difficult for the dad, and you could tell. I will say this, though. Like, what would you do if you are hitting a point in your life where you are going to the bar to drink and you're having to lie to your significant other about it?
Yeah, no,
like
that's bad.
that is your AA moment right there.
Yeah.
Like that's when you're like, okay, yeah, I have a problem. I need to go to AA.
Yeah, and that happened because she had said no more drinking. She poured out all of his bottles of whatever and said this ends now. And so he basically didn't drink at home, and he would retreat to a bar, of course not telling anyone that's where he was, and he was still continuing to drink. So yeah, when you escalate to that level of deception, that's obviously not good for your romantic relationship or your future as a just a functioning human being. But the mom, you know, and this is so true with every mom, regardless of who your child is or what they might be dealing with, is moms don't get the respite. They're the moms. You know, they're always the ones that are making sure that the lunches are made, making sure someone doesn't run, especially in this case where you didn't want Austin to run and hurt himself. And there was a scene where she was frustrated with Scott and said, do you realize Austin always gets hurt when it's under your watch and not mine? And that's because moms are just more vigilant.
Well, it's not even just moms. It is somewhat the difference between males and females.
Yeah.
And
I'll give you that.
That because moms are female, they do tend to be more caring, more watchful. we as men are often have the mentality of everything will be fine. Like everything will be fine. We'll like sure, okay, but it'll be fine in the end. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not.
Well, I think you have a good point there. And when I remember one of the scenes where Teresa was leaving and said, Scott, watch Austin, I'm leaving. I said, okay, I got it. But he was sitting at the desk and he was working on his computer, and Austin was running around and he was still doing what he was doing on the computer, saying, don't run, buddy, don't do this. And sure enough, Austin fell. And when you have a kid, especially a kid in that situation where he cannot fall because he's going to break a bone, you can't multitask. You can't continue to be working at your desk and thinking you're going to get anything done other than sitting there and watching your kid. And anything short of that is just not okay when you have a child with that kind of brittle bone disease.
But it's still exhausting. I mean, it's like you have to work if you want to put money into the bank account to put food on the table.
It takes a lot of collaboration, a lot of patience, and a lot of teamwork.
I mean,
you can't expect one parent to take the lion's share of the responsibility simply because of circumstances, unless that's something you all agree on. Just a high degree of communication there.
Yeah, no, this is why conditions like this can end marriages, because it is so hard and it can wear the parents down to emotional nothing. And
yeah, and we definitely saw that toll on them as people, individuals, and their relationships. So, my heart and love goes out to anyone who has any sort of special needs child, whatever that might be, in the amount of work and love that goes into all of that, and wanting to care for your child, but also making time to care for yourself so you don't go crazy in the process.
Yeah, and that's actually a huge key point, is that you have to take care of your own mental health, and if you don't, you're not going to be able to take care of other people. You just can't. I mean, it's not that you want to put yourself first or put yourself ahead of the rest of your family. It's that you have to put yourself high enough up to be in a position to care for them. And that's kind of what we saw, is that like he just wasn't keeping his mental health in check.
The dad, yeah.
Yeah, and
finding a positive outlet. Like, I understand the dad's need to want to escape and have a break from it all, but that's where you've really got to have some honest conversations with yourself and your spouse and be like, okay,
and your imaginary friend.
And yeah. And can I find an outlet that's more constructive? Like a workout or a family walk, which actually, no, that wouldn't work with them because her mom also had brittle bone things. But
yeah,
the point,
that one scene where like they're all coming out of like the hospital, all with something wrong with them all at once, the trifecta.
Yeah. But, and I think that's the case with any struggle in life, whatever it might be, is find that more positive outlet. And that's hard, and it takes a lot of self-awareness. But when you open up that Pandora's box to a bad habit, that's a long, long path.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where if you're just two parents, good luck. I mean, this is really one of those situations where you kind of just hope that you have other family, be it like uncles and aunts or grandparents or
someone to call in to give you some relief.
Yeah, somebody to come and tag out every once in a while just to give you a chance to recharge. And I mean, sometimes you're going to have it and sometimes you're not. And I really feel for the people who don't, because I think that's the key to success, is just understanding that you have limitations, and it's not whether or not you love your kid enough. It's, I love my kid. I've got to stay sane for my kid. I might need a couple of hours here where somebody else is actually watching. So
yeah, no, I agree. It takes a lot of difficult conversations with yourself and your family to make sure that you are healthy enough mentally and physically enough to meet the demands that help everyone. And I think what we saw is the effects when everyone is overwhelmed, and it's just too much. But on the upside, Austin was a happy kid and grew up to be a happy adult. And kudos to him in, living his life with no filter.
Yeah. And as a final thought here, listen, if you want to bang on the third date, that's perfectly fine. But dude, you got to use protection. You got to take a little more caution here. Like, let's not force ourselves into a relationship because we knock somebody up on the third date.
Yeah. Condoms, kids.
Condoms.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.